Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Yeah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم كلا إن كتاب الفجار لفي سجين وما أدراك ما سجين كتاب مرقوم ويل يومئذ للمكذبين الذين يكذبون بيوم الدين وما يكذب به إلا كل معتد أثيم إذا تتلى عليه آياتنا قال أساطير الأولين كلا بل ران على قلوبهم ما كانوا يكسبون كلا إنهم عن ربهم يومئذ لمحجوبون ثم إنهم لصالوا الجحيم ثم يقال هذا الذي كنتم به تكذبون. Very respected brothers and elders and other listeners, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, last week we began the Tafseer of Surat Al-Mutaffifeen, Wailul lil-Mutaffifeen. And I explained these first few ayats. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the main subject of the surat, Mutaffifeen, yani those people who do the fraud, the cheating. And it was explained in the first few ayat what this means exactly. Those people who demand in full when they want something, and when it's their turn to give, when their turn to sell, for example, then they try to cheat and reduce the amount. And I explained that this is applicable in all areas of life as well, this kind of fraud that takes place, cheating that takes place. And in the end, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned about these people, that these are the people that they don't have any fear कि कल हमने क़यामत के रोज़ हम उठाए जाएंगे and Allah के सामने हमें जवाब देना पड़ेगा. We will have to give our reckoning in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the seventh ayat that we begin from today, كَلَّا إِنَّ كِتَابَ الْفُجَّارِ لَفِي سِجِّينٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala now goes into the detail कि what will be the outcome, the situation of these people. On that day when people will be raised, on that day what will be their situation? First Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says kalla, yani kalla hargiz nahi, yeah? No way, never. This word is actually in this few ayats that I've just recited is mentioned 3 times. Ye kalla, ye lafz, ye hai, isko kehte hain harf rad. So this harf is used to reject or negate something. So again it was mentioned these people कि अला यज़ुन्नु उलाइका अन्नहुम मबऊसून, कि उनको गुमान ही नहीं आया कि इनको उठाया जाएगा. They didn't even think, the thought doesn't cross their mind that one day they're going to be resurrected and brought in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah is negating this कि कल्ला, कि हरगिज़ नहीं. इन्न किताब al-fujjari लफ़ी सिज्जीन, बेशक फुज्जार के नाम अमाल अलबत्ता सिज्जीन में होगा. So he's saying here that those inna kitab al-fujjari, that indeed the books, yani the book of deeds, the book of deeds of the fujjar meaning the transgressors, the sinners, lafi sijjeen wa albatta sijjeen mein hoga, it will be in the sijjeen. So what is the sijjeen now? So sijjeen is from the word sajan. We might have heard before the word sijnun. There is a hadith which is often mentioned, ki ad-dunya sijnul mu'min, ki the dunya is the prison for the believer. So it's taken from the same word of sijnun, sajanun. So sajan, it means when something is imprisoned in a narrow space. So this is an extra detail of this, a narrow space, to be imprisoned in a narrow place. Tang jagah mein kaid hona. And here sijjeen is like it's from it's like an emphasized meaning of this. So, and also it gives the meaning of indefinitely being imprisoned in that thing. कि हमेशा के लिए ऐसे तंग जगह में कैद होना. So to be imprisoned in this tight space forever and ever. So this is actually talking now here about Name Amal, the book of deeds. Yani the book of deeds of those people will be in the Sijjeen. It's mentioned in one hadith regarding this as well, to the nearest meaning as well, in which it says it will be said to about these people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say about them, write their book of deeds into the Sijjeen. So the Mufassirin mentioned the Sijjeen will contain both the book of deeds, yani after that person dies, his book of deeds will go into the Sijjeen, but it's also been mentioned as well that the souls of the disbelievers will also go to the Sijjeen. And later we will come on to the Illiyin, which is the opposite of this. This will be inshallah in next week's dars. But the Sijjeen is referring to this, that it will be in the souls of the disbelievers, and their book of deeds will also be in this sijjeen. And Allah is saying afterwards कि वमा अदराक मा सिज्जीन, कि आपको क्या पता है कि सिज्जीन क्या है? What do you know about the sijjeen? You know, we've heard this before a few times in other surahs. وما أدراك ما القارعة, for example. Yeah, in different places Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said this. وما أدراك ما الحاقة. Yes. So the reason why this is being said, one thing we should remember is, मकसद इसका कहने का ये नहीं है कि ये लफ्ज़ को अरब को मालूम नहीं था कि इसका मतलब क्या है. It's not that this is not an Arabic word and they didn't know what it meant. No, the reason why Allah is mentioning this is to bring attention to it. To bring attention to this matter, that this is a very serious matter. This sijjeen is a very serious thing. So, وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا سِجِّينَ, what is it? What do you know about what this sijjeen is? So, as I've explained, this is such. And some of the Mufassirin have also mentioned about the sijjeen in one narration. I think in the narration of Bayhaqi has mentioned as well, about the sijjeen, that it is actually under the 7 earths. It is under the 7 earths. And he mentions about Jahannam as well in some narrations. It is under the 7 earths. It says that each earth as you go down gets bigger and bigger and bigger. इसी तरह ऊपर जाए आसमानों में जाए तो each heaven as you go higher and higher gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So the sijjeen is in the 7th earth. Some say is it below the 7th earth. Some say is it in the 7th earth, right at the bottom. And this is where those souls will go and the kitab will go. And he mentions a description about the kitab as well, कि किताब मरकूम, ये मोहर लगी हुई किताब है. यानी it is an inscribed kitab, it is an inscribed book, यानी it is sealed. मरकूम का मतलब मख्तूम, यानी it is sealed. Once that person has died, he's passed away without iman, his book is now sealed. You can't add anything. There is no amal extra to add into this book now. It's sealed, it has been put into the sijjeen, that's it, that is time up for that. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is now saying for them, وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ. Remember the surah also started with this same word, وَيْلٌ لِلْمُطَفِّفِينَ. Here Allah is reminding us again, this is the outcome of those people. وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ. Ke wail, and I mentioned it then, ke wail, the Mufassirin often keep mentioning two different meanings of this word. एक तो है कि it's a form of azab, is halakat, या दूसरा माना यह है कि it is a valley, a wadi in Jahannam. And one narration is mentioned is a wadi is so deep this valley in Jahannam that if a person was thrown off the top of it into the valley, it would take 40 years for him to land into the bottom of this valley. So وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ, wail, या तो हलाकत या तो ये खास azab जो है is on that day for मुकذ्विबीन, जुटलाने वालों के लिए, for those people who denied, for those people who did not accept कि हमें खड़ा होना पड़ेगा, we will have to give an account, we will have to be raised in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They rejected this matter, for them will be wail, this destruction on the day of Qiyamah. Yawma is in usroz. Yawma is in se murad usroz, yani the day of Qiyamah, the day of judgment. कि الذين يكذبون بيوم الدين, कि वो लोग जो जुटलाते हैं ये यौमुद्दीन, ये जज़ा का दिन, this day of reckoning, this day of judgment. Those people who rejected this, they didn't accept this, those are the people, these are the mukaththibin, is the description being given of the mukaththibin. What is it that they were rejecting? That they were saying this is false, so this is not true. It was this, they were rejecting that they are going to have to come back on the day of Qiyamah and give some account for what they have done. وَمَا يُكَذِّبُ بِهِ إِلَّا كُلُّ مُعْتَدٍ أَثِيمٍ. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says here कि और वो जुटलाते नहीं उसको मगर हर वो आदमी जो, this is saying हद से भरने वाले गुनहगार जो हैं, मुअतदिन अथीम. Let me explain this, कि they do not deny this except every mu'tad and athim. Two descriptions being given here. Mu'tadin is from the word, this is mu'tad, इसका मतलब यही है कि ये बंदा हद से पार करने वाला है. He's a transgressor. He's somebody who crosses the limits. And athim, so we may have heard before the word ithmun. Ithmun का मतलब है गुनाह, और athim का मतलब बहुत ज़्यादा गुनाह करने वाला. So these two words, they have a similar meaning. They both mean that person who is doing some sin, who is doing some wrong, and who is transgressing limits. So the Mufassirin have mentioned two different types of explanations of this. In one place, it has been mentioned कि mu'tad, this is the types of guna where a person has forgone the rights of the people. जैसे यहाँ वैलुल लिलमुतफ्फिफीन में we talked about the fraudsters, the people who cheat. So who are they cheating? वो दूसरे लोगों के साथ कर रहे हैं, हुकूकुल इबाद को ज़ाया कर रहे हैं. the other people who they're dealing with in business, in transaction, they are cheating those people. They are not fulfilling the rights of those people properly. So the Mufassirin mentioned this mu'tad is referring to this. That when it is the rights of the people, hukukul ibad, not fulfilling those rights properly, transgressing those rights, this is the mu'tad. And athim is referring to when we are transgressing the limits of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not fulfilling the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The person is committing a sin, he's not performing his namaz, or he's doing some other sin which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has forbidden him from. This is what is being referred to as athim. And in another place the Mufassirin mentioned these two words, कि एक का मतलब मु'तद का मतलब है अफ़आल, the thing that he does physically, the actions that he does, those things that he does that are wrong. And athim refers to his aqwal, the things that he says, the verbal sins that he commits. So either way, there are two different meanings given. Lekin the point here is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that these people who deny the day of judgment are all of those people, they are illa kullu mu'tadin asim. Jo mu'tad and athim hai, the ones who do the sins, transgress the limits of the hukukul ibad and of hukukullah, those are the people that deny the day of Qiyamah. Because इसी वजह से तो गुनाह किया जाता है. A person will only sin if he has no fear of retribution, if no fear that he will have to pay for that sin. He will only commit a sin if he has no fear. If there is no law and order outside, then what will happen? If there is no fear that any police will come, that there is any imprisonment or any kind of penalty for doing any sin, then what's going to happen? Everybody will be crazy out there. There will be all rioting and people will be stealing and people will be doing all sorts. Because there is no fear of any kind of retribution. So similarly, the kind of things that a person feels he can get away with in the dunya, that he won't get his pakar for it. Nobody in the dunya, no human being is going to grab him for it. But he thinks he can get away with it. Why is he thinking he can get away with it? Because he is not believing in the day of Qiyamah. He's not believing that I need to stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala one day and give account for everything that I'm doing here. So وَمَا يُكَذِّبُ بِهِ إِلَّا كُلُّ مُعْتَدٍ أَثِيمٍ إذا تتلى عليه آياتنا قال أساطير الأولين. And he says here कि जब के तिलावत की जाती है उस पर हमारे आयत, إذا تتلى, when is recited upon him آياتنا, our ayats, यानी the ayat of the Quran, قال أساطير الأولين, वो कहता है कि ये पहलुओं की कहानियाँ हैं. He says these are just the stories, the tales of old. And this is mentioned in a few places in the Quran, that this is often what the people would say. कि we see obviously in the Quran, many places Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks of the tales of history of the previous prophets that have come, Qawm Aad, Qawm Thamud, Qawm Lut, the talking about Fir'aun, Bani Israel. All of these things are mentioned in great detail in the Quran. So those people who used to deny the Quran, this is what they used to say about the Quran. This is nothing, قال أساطير الأولين, this is just fairy tales. This is just fairy tales. And if you see even today as well, those who are atheists, those who don't have belief in the Quran, if they have, they've never looked at the Quran, they've never touched the Quran, opened the Quran. Lekin those who have and they still reject it, the reason why, the things they often say, that they say, we don't believe this is just some, it's not they don't regard it as history, they say this is just fairy tales, this is just stories. They don't believe what is in there. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the next ayat explains, why is it that they see it like this? Why can they not see the haqq in the Quran? كَلَّا بَلْ رَانَ عَلَىٰ قُلُوبِهِمْ مَا كَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ. Again here the word kalla is used. So here, as I said, harf rad, it is rejecting this notion. They have said that this is asatirul awwalin. They are saying this is the book that is just about the fairy tales of old. Allah is saying kalla. Foran uska rad aaya. Bilkul, hargiz nahi. No way is that the case. Balki, what is the actual reality? What is the situation? Rana ala qulubihim. Okay, zang lag gaya hai unke dilon pe, ma kanu yaksibun, because of the actions which they do. Zang आलूद हो गया है उनके दिलों, वो काम करते हैं उसकी वजह से, जो वो कमाते हैं उसकी वजह से, their hearts have now rusted. And this word rana comes from rain. Rain means the rusting, like we have the rusting of iron. So when you see metal and it rusts, and after it rusts, it will just turn into dust. It will eventually rot away. It will turn into dust. It will be nothing. And he's mentioned this ayat is mentioned in one hadith in detail. Is mentioned ke إذا العبد إن العبد إذا أذنب, ke when an admi jab koi a slave إذا أذنب ذنبا, when he does any guna, तो كانت نقطة سوداء في قلبه, that becomes a black dot on his heart. We have heard this hadith probably many times before. كانت نقطة سوداء في قلبه. It becomes a black dot on his heart. अब अगर वो तौबा करता है فإن تاب, if he does tawbah, he repents from this sin, then that sin is wiped out. It is clean, is polished away. His heart is put back to new. There's no black dot anymore. लेकिन وإن زاد زادت. If he continues to sin, if he continues to do guna after that, these black dots continue to build up and build up and build up. And فَذَلِكَ قَوْلُ اللَّهِ, and then he says that is the ayat which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has referred to, that is the call of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala कि كَلَّا بَلْ رَانَ عَلَىٰ قُلُوبِهِمْ مَا كَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ, is referring to them people कि वो इतने गुनाह कर चुके हैं, they have done so many sins, they have filled their heart up with so much of these black dots, the whole of the heart has become black, and now it is starting to rust. It has begun to rust. And as mentioned in the other ayat of the Quran, Surah Baqarah, which is خَتَمَ اللَّهُ عَلَىٰ قُلُوبِهِمْ, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then puts muhr, a seal on their hearts. Now it cannot accept any goodness anymore. अब कोई खैर की चीज़ उस दिल में नहीं जा सकता. So now even the pure things such as the Quran, the call of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, kalamullah, it cannot enter that heart. Because the heart has become sealed, it has rusted so much, it's become sealed. Now no goodness is able to enter that heart. And why? مَا كَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ, for the reason of what they themselves have been doing. वो जो गुनाह करते रहे हैं, they have been disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they have been rejecting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala all their lives. Because of this very reason, this is why their hearts have become so black, and then they have begun to, the rust has come in their hearts. This rust mentioned here, rain refers to the type of rust or covering that would actually be referred to for the lil kafirin, for the kuffar. इसमें तीन किस्म के अल्फाज हैं. एक ये है rain, from we get rana. एक और है ghaim. Ghaim है lil abrar. For a believer, he has what you call ghaim, कि वो थोड़ा गाफिल हो जाता है. He becomes a little bit, maybe commits some sins or becomes a bit forgetful and goes a bit far away. And उसकी वजह से दिल पे थोड़ी बहुत, you get a little bit of a covering, and he becomes a little bit ghafil of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for a short period of time. फिर अल्लाह ताला उसको तौबा की तौफीक देते हैं, साफ हो जाता है, and he comes back to normal. And the other one is ghain with a noon at the end. This is lil muqarrabin. This is only for the very, very close people of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This has been mentioned, the word has been used with relation to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam himself. Yani those people who have such a high status that for them it is a matter of, like for example, the status of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that each day he was living this world, each day his rank would increase further and further. With every day that would pass by, the rank of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the status of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam would increase further and further and further. So this was the situations, but the ghain is used, this word would be used to describe that situation when you look back and you think that this may be a previous situation or something that you had done in the past, that this was not reflective of the status of that person. So anyway, this was for the muqarrabeen, for those people who are really the awliya of Allah, the close pious friends of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the point is, three different words are used for this. Lekin yahan jo lafz istemal kiya gaya rana, this is referring to the kuffar. Okay? And ahead, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, again now for the third time says, Kalla. Kalla innahum ar rabbihim yawma idhin la mahjubun. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, again, hargiz nahi, कि इन्नहुम अर रब्बिहिम यौम इदिन लमहजूबून, कि बेशक वो इन्नहुम अर रब्बिहिम, उनके परवरदिगार से यौम इदिन उस रोज़ लमहजूबून, अलबत्ता महरूम होंगे. They will be, indeed they will be from their Rabb, from their Lord, from their parwardigar on that day, لمحجوبون, they will be veiled. لمحجوبون ये hijab वाली लफ्ज़ से आता है. Okay, this means to be veiled. They will be covered. They will not be able to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on that day. अब देखें, पीछे is mentioned wail for these people, the kuffar and the mukaththibeen. It has mentioned the sijjeen for them. It has mentioned that their hearts have become hard, and other things. आगे ثم إنهم لصالو الجحيم, फिर बेशक वो अलबत्ता वो दाखिल होंगे जहन्नम में, that they will be entered into the fire of Jahannam. This is also mentioned. The azab they will get is also mentioned. लेकिन यहाँ, why is Allah specifically mentioning that they will not have the ability to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of Qiyamah? Because this in itself, my dear brothers, this in itself is a punishment. ये हर आदमी, and what we learn from this ayat is कि every human being, every being, that living being has a desire. उसको ये, he has a desire to meet his creator, to see his creator. एक मिसाल ले लो, कभी होता है कि a child grows up and maybe he was an adopted child or lived with step parents or इस तरह की कुछ हुई, and he finds out maybe later in his life कि my father or was somebody else, I never met my father, and now he comes to know that my father was somebody else and I never met him, never knew him. अब उसको दिल में ये होता है कि I want to see my father, I want to see who he was, who, हालांकि that person had no involvement in his upbringing. He was the linking, his biology is links back to that person. तो उसको दिल में होता है एक this desire कि I want to meet that person. हालांकि there's no connection otherwise, that person had no involvement in his upbringing, in his life, लेकिन he wants to meet that person, he wants to know who is my father. He is the big factor in my DNA, in my genetics of who I am. And then they would go out and try and search and try and find out who was this individual. आजकल तो go beyond that, even people want to go back and look in their genetics, their websites now that people use to go back, find their family tree and see where do we come from, कहाँ से हम आते हैं. So this is just a fraction. वो तो माँ बाप और फिर उसके पीछे जो है दादा दादी नाना नानी, this is our heritage, this is our where our genes come from. लेकिन असल में पैदा करने वाले कौन हैं? वो तो अल्लाह सुब्हानहु व ताला है. Our real creator is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So every single human being, every living being has a desire to meet and see his own creator. This is what happened with Hazrat Musa alayhi salatu wasalam when he went and he said, I want to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, oh Allah, I want to see you. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, you can't. It's not possible. In this dunya, it's not possible. Lekin Qiyamah ke din, and in the Akhirat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make it possible. And this is why it's mentioned in the hadith, it mentions very clearly, where people will go into Jannat, they will experience all of the ni'mats, all of the blessings of Jannat. And after all of this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will address the people. And He says two things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say one thing first and foremost to all of you. First, Allah will ask, are you happy with everything you have been given? And obviously all of the Jannatis will be so happy and so pleased, and they will thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I've got two things for you today. First of two happy news. First happy news is, after this day, I will never ever be displeased with you ever again. And secondly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, today you will get the chance to see me in my true form. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will allow the people to see Him in His form. And this, after all of the blessings of Jannat, all of the ni'mats of Jannat, this will be the ultimate ni'mat, the ultimate blessing, the highest form of blessing. And this is why in this ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling those people, those disbelievers, you're going to miss out. This is an azab itself, that you're going to miss out on this ultimate blessing, because your very own creator, you're going to miss that opportunity to see your own creator. كَلَّا إِنَّهُمْ عَنْ رَبِّهِمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ لَمَحْجُوبُونَ. And also इससे ये भी पता चलता है कि there is a concept of मफ़हूम मुखालिफ. यहाँ अल्लाह सुब्हानहु व तआला ये फरमा रहे हैं कि वो लोग अल्लाह सुब्हानहु व तआला को नहीं देख सकेंगे. So the मफ़हूम मुखालिफ of this, the alternative meaning which we can understand from this is, जो मुमिन लोग थे, the believers, उनके लिए ये दीदार milna, they will be blessed with this opportunity to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is mentioned also in Surah Qiyamah, ki wujuhun yawma idhin nadira ila rabbiha nadira. The faces on that day will be radiant, ila rabbiha nadira. They will be looking towards their Rabb. They will be pleased and happy on that day. So this is the great blessing that the believers will get. Looking for the disbelievers, a big punishment for them. They will be deprived of this greatest of blessings. ثُمَّ إِنَّهُمْ لَصَالُ الْجَحِيمِ. फिर अल्लाह सुब्हानहु व तआला फरमाते हैं कि उसके बाद फिर वो जहन्नम में डाले जाएंगे. Then they will be thrown into and put into the fire of Jahannam. They will be missed out on this blessing first and foremost. Yes, when you get punishment to a person in the dunya, first of all you tell them what you're going to miss out on. And then after that you tell them what your punishment is. And then if you really want to torment that person, what do you do afterwards? ثُمَّ يُقَالُ وَهَذَا الَّذِي كُنْتُمْ بِهِ تُكَذِّبُونَ. फिर उनसे कहा जाएगा कि ये है वो जो कुंतुम बिही तुकज़्ज़िबून, जो तुम जुटलाते थे. After you deprive them, take something away from them first, then you punish them, and on top of that you verbally torment them as well. Like when somebody is getting punished, he's getting beat up, he's getting whipped, lashed, and on top of that, you're verbally tormenting him as well. This is your fault, because you did this, and because of your actions, this is why. It was your own fault. You were thinking that you were this and that, and now this is your punishment. So all these three forms of punishment are mentioned one by one. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala फरमाने के पहले उसको he won't receive this blessing of being able to see Allah. फिर लसालुल जहीम, then he will be entered into the fire of Jahannam, and then it will, on top of that, it will be said to him, there will be verbal torment will be there. يقال هذا الذي كنتم به تكذبون. This is the exact thing that you were denying. This is the exact thing which you were rejecting, and now you are experiencing, you are seeing this. So these are the ayat explaining that those للمطففين and للمكذبين, those people who cheat in the dunya, that Allah is describing the mukadhibeen after mutaffifeen. The people who do fraud, the people who cheat in the dunya, those are those people who, they are the mukadhibeen. They're only doing it because they are not thinking that they have to answer for this on the day of Qiyamah. So first and foremost, as believers, we have to save ourselves from this action of mutaffifeen, of this fraud, of this cheating. Because this is the amal of the disbelievers. Because they don't believe that they are going to stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are believers, so with that belief, our basic belief is that the belief of the day of Qiyamah, that we will be raised, al-ba'thi ba'd al-maut, that will be raised again after death. We will have to present in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so we have to prepare for that. And that means knowing that when we are doing sins in this world, that this we will have to give account for this, we will have to give a reckoning for this on the day of Qiyamah. So we have to save ourselves from this kind of sins, from this kind of fraud and cheating, and then inshallah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through His rahmah, through His mercy, Allah will save us from this punishment. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us from these descriptive punishments mentioned here. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us all from those who are given this great blessing of seeing and gaining the didar of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of Qiyamah and in Jannat. Wa akhiru da'wan alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين اللهم إنك عفو تحب العفو فاعف عنا يا كريم اللهم إنا نسألك رضاك والجنة ونعوذ بك من سخطك وغضبك والنار اللهم رب اغفر وارحم وأنت خير الراحمين سبحان الله وبحمده سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك ونشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.